Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of my Blues Deluxe show. Today, man, I can't believe I have Robert Lee Balderrama with me. People don't know who you are, but I'm going to tell them who you are.
Well, thank you.
Robert, also known as Bobby, is a founding member of a band called Question Mark and the Mysterians. And he's played with a whole bunch of other people over the years as well. But the most famous of it was Question Mark and the Mysterians. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much, John, for being here and having me on your show.
You're welcome. So let's talk about all the way back when you were a kid, back in the '60s, and starting out. How did you end up with Question Mark and the Mysterians?
Well, what I did was I gotta lay this phone down so I can
There you go. Almost had it.
almost had it there. There we go. Yeah. So when I was a little kid, that there was a they used to have a battle of bands in Bay City, Michigan. It was at a park, and I wanted to go see it. I wanted to go to it, but I wasn't old enough. I think I was 12 years old, and you had to be 13. You had to be a teenager to get in. So my sister said, "Well, I'll take you. We can because it's always outside, and we could just park out in front, and watch the bands play." And I said, "All right." So I was watching this one band play. A good friend of mine now, and his son too, is my manager. His name is Chad Cunningham, and his dad was Ron Cunningham, and he played with the Adele Rays was the name of the band. And I remember watching them, and it was like they were playing Louie Louie by the Kingsmen,
Yep.
and and I said, "Wow, it is the Kingsmen there." I mean, they nailed the song. So I thought it was the Kingsmen. And so on the way home, I told my sister, "I think that was a Kingsman." She goes, "I think that was a band from Bay City, just playing the song." I said, "Okay," but it inspired me to want to have a band.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my nephew Larry Borges, my sister's son, we would practice and learn songs. We played mostly ventures music. I would play Walk Don't Run or Pipeline. I remember the Shadows too. They were from England, and we did their song. We just played them, practicing. And my sister came down. We were in the basement, and she came down and she says, "You guys, I should start a band." And I go, I was watching a band play, and that's what I really want to start a band. So I asked my nephew Larry, "You want to start?" He goes, "I don't know." Larry was kind of, he wasn't really a person that you know uh, thought positive all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was kind of excited, and he just didn't even care. But so the one day I was I was at Larry's house, my sister's house, and somebody showed up, and he had a pair of kungas. And I asked him, I said, do you play drums? And he goes, I played a little bit. So we jammed, and I thought he was pretty good, on the kungas, on the bongos. I mean, it was little bongos.
Yeah.
And so he played it. We were playing, the ventures, and he was playing along, and I could tell his timing was excellent. So I asked him. I said, "You want to get together and practice? Maybe we could start something going." And he goes, "Yeah." So I had a farm. My parents had a farm in Bay City, Michigan, and a 40-acre farm, and we had a two-car garage. So we practiced in a garage. So we were definitely a garage band. And then we were kids, so we were definitely punks. You know where I'm going with that, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Punk garage music. And so we started practicing. And we learned the ventures. And this one guy was driving by. We had the garage doors open in summertime, and he keeps driving back and forth. And I used to sell fruit because we had a farm, and I grow my own vegetables and fruit. And I thought he was stopping to buy some. So he pulled in the driveway, and I walked up to him and I said, "Well, can I help you, sir?" And he said, "Yeah, I've been driving back and forth." I said, "I see that." I said, "Are you interested in some of my vegetables or fruit?" And he goes, "No, I've been listening to your band, and I could hear you guys a mile away, exactly where the garage door was open, where it was
Yep.
shooting straight out." And he said he lived, about a mile that way, and so he could hear the music. So he asked me if we would be interested in doing a gig, for his fraternity. He went to college, and we did, and we played for him, and that was our first gig that we did, and as Question Mark and the Mysterian, as with Question Mark. We did one other gig, but it was more instrumental because we were playing Nothing But Adventures, and we were playing at a church, and they said, "Well, you guys are really good, but who sings in the band?" And I didn't want a singer. I wanted to play the Ventures. I'm a guitar player, so
Hmm.
that's what I wanted to play. I always loved the blues, but man, it was beyond me, or jazz. I was just starting to learn how to play guitar, so playing melody songs came easier than improvising. And so that's what we did. But I realized we needed to get a singer. So when Robert would come over to practice, and I asked him, I said, "I think we're going to have to get a singer." And then, but at the same time, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones just came out, and so singing was really prominent. And it kind of like the instrumentals went away, and I was kind of sad, because I wasn't really into singing. And so we tried out Question Mark, and it was Robert's brother, Rudy Martinez, and we tried him out, and I thought he was a great singer. We did Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, and I noticed he was dancing.
Yep.
So I said, "Wow, he's a great dancer too. That would be great, like Mick Jagger." Except he danced like a Question Mark danced more like a girl than Mick Jagger. He just runs around on stage and stuff,
Yep.
maybe shake a little bit, but Question Mark was dancing. He was really dancing, and I go, "Wow, this is really good." And then he did the splits. I said, "Man, this is awesome," So I said, "Yeah." I told Robert a couple days later. I said, "Tell Question Mark, if he wants to." His name is Rudy. That's what we called him, Rudy.
Yep.
Tell Rudy if he's interested. We're definitely. I'm interested, and we need a singer. So he started coming to practice, and we started playing out, doing teen dances and stuff. And then I always was more into write music. I always wanted to write music, and so I got involved. I when I would listen to the Adventures, I always try to think of instrumentals to write, and and so when we got Question Mark in the band, I started writing songs, and we hired Frankie Rodriguez, a keyboard player. We were watching, I think it was Shindig or something like a Hell Baloo back in the
Yep.
'60s, and there was a band from England, Dave Clark Five. They had a keyboard player, and he was a singer, and he had this box Continental organ, and I thought it had a great sound to it. Just told it didn't sound like a Hammond organ, and so we got Frankie Rodriguez on keyboards, and then we were playing out, doing teen dances, and then we were practicing over Frankie's house, and I used to practice a lot all the time on my guitar, learning chords and leads and stuff. So I was going over a power chord. It's a like power chords. You got to use every finger, to play that chord.
Hmm.
And so I would practice. I would go back and forth, and I was going from G to C, and Frankie was playing keyboards and onto it. And before the drummer started playing to it, and Question Mark started singing the words to it. And then when we were done, of course, Mike would record everything. He had one of the little Mission Impossible recorders, with the little yeah. And he would record everything and take it home and listen to our practice. So he was recording that, and so our drummer, when we were done rehearsing, he goes, "Sounds like we got a song." Frankie's keyboards, and so he asked me, he said, "What are you going to call the song?" Question mark. And he goes, "I think I'm going to call it Too Many Teardrops." Because the lyrics was in the song.
Hmm.
And he goes, "Why don't we call it a number? Give it a number, like instead of too many teardrops, give it tears, And so I asked him, I said, what are you getting at? And he goes, like 69 tears, and I was so young, John, that I kind of knew what it meant, but not really. And I was very naive and all that. And I kind of thought I knew, but I was scared to ask. So I said, I know there's something about that number. And maybe the radio station wouldn't play it. And he goes, well, let's turn the numbers around. 96 tears. And I said, yeah, that's catchy. Question mark agreed. So we went with it. And the question mark got a hold of this lady. She had a Mexican label where she did Tejano music. And she had all these people these musicians from Texas. They come up to Michigan and they would uh, play for the Mexican people up here.
Yep.
And so we went to her and we told we wrote a song, and she was interested. And she said, "Well, I never done rock and roll, but I'll definitely put you in a studio." And she did, and we recorded it, and she released it. And she called us up and said, "Well, I got the records." Yeah, and she had 500 singles. And she said, "So take them to the radio station, take them to the record stores." And I told her, I said, well, "I thought that's the record company's job. We're just the musicians."
Yep.
And she goes, "Yeah, you're right, but I don't do rock and roll. I don't know nothing about rock and roll." And so she says, "If you guys want to do something with it, it's up to you. You take it to the radio station." So we did. And we started getting airplay, and before you know it, it started taking off.
Big. It became big. It was a big hit back then.
It was. And what started it was, I don't know if you know who Dick Wagner is, but
Yeah, I know who he is.
yeah. Anyway, he had a band in the local area called the Bossman, and they had a single out the same time we did. So when we took it to the radio station, the DJ told us that he what he would like to do a contest between us and Dick Wagner song. So he said, "Tell everybody." He gave us a date. He said, "Tell everybody when we're going to do it, and they can call in." And we said, "All right." So they did it, and the contest went on, and we won once, and Dick Wagner won, and sometimes it was so close, that the DJ, I think out of his kindness, said it's a draw. And I was happy with that because I liked Dick Wagner, and he was a great guitar player, and he could play blues, and I always wanted to learn how to play blues. And he could improvise, and I never knew how to improvise. How you just let your mind wander and play, just to me it was the impossible. So I watched him, and then a record started taking off in the Saginaw Bay City area, and so we took it to Flint, Michigan, and we actually took it to Detroit, which wasn't that far from Flint. And the guy in Flint, he hired us for teen dances, so he said he would play our song. When say we're gonna play it as tea dance, he would play it a week before. He wasn't really into putting on rotation, or nothing like
Yep.
that, because we were just the local yokels. But he said he would play it during promotion time, so he did, and he started getting a lot of requests for it. And so he called us up and told us the record stores were calling that people wanted to buy the record in Flint. So we took it to Flint, and before you know it, the Bay City and Saginaw stores sold out. We had to go to our manager, and she ordered more. I think she ordered, maybe the most she ordered was 1,000. I only made, it was called Pagogo Records. And then we took it down to Detroit, and at first they didn't want to play it, but I think Detroit and Flint are so close together that people in Detroit, they can hear Flint radio. And so
So
they
they
started,
heard it. So they heard it.
yeah, they heard it in Detroit. And and, uh, and so people started requesting at that station. It was actually CKLW, which was actually Canada, Windsor, but it was the popular rock station in that area. And so they got a hold of us, and they wanted a copy. So we sent them. We got another copy to them, and they started playing it. Went number one, and then that's when all the record companies started coming in, and they were trying to outbid each other. And we went with Cameo Parkway
Yep.
with Neil Bogart. I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
heard
I
of
know
Neil.
who he is too.
And so we went with them, and record went number one. Before you know it, we're doing American Bandstand, and all these TV shows. We did a couple of TV shows in New York City. Uh, we're playing all over the country, and it was just an amazing time, John.
I got a question for you
Yeah,
about that. During that time, you were on package tours with other bands, right?
yeah.
What was that like?
It was amazing because I got to meet Rick Derringer, and I didn't know how great of a guitar player he was. I remember "Hang On Sloopy" because that came out in 1965, and I really liked the song because I liked his guitar lead, and I always liked guitar leads and songs. And so we toured with it was the McCoys, it was the Outsiders, uh, and there was the, the Seeds. They had the song
Yep, I
"Pushing Guard."
remember them.
Yep, and the Shadows of Nights from Chicago. They had Gloria, and who else? It was I think that was it. It was like four bands. And anyway, we toured in a bus, like a Greyhound bus with no beds and nothing. It was no kitchen. It wasn't a tour bus. It was it was a
It was an empty bus that you slept in, basically.
yeah. It was a traveling bus that Greyhound used to transport people. And the best thing I remember, it had little TVs, in there, and I thought that was pretty high tech. And so we traveled all together in a bus, one bus. So we all hung out and got to know each other. And Rick Derringer saw my guitar one time, and I would always watch him play. I always made sure I wanted to watch him. He was like the best guitar player, but everybody in the tour. And so one day we were leaving the hotel, and um, we were getting back to the hotel, and he comes up to me. He goes, "What kind of guitar you got?" I go, "It's an ES 345." He goes, "I'd like to check it out. Why don't you come up to my room?" And I said, "All right." Well, I was excited, because I was shy. I was really shy, and so I went up to the room. He had a little amp, and he's playing it, my guitar, and I'm watching him. Man, he's just playing great blues, out of sight blues, and then he starts playing jazz. And he started. I can tell he's playing jazz because I listened to jazz when I was a kid, and I knew it was beyond me, but I loved it. It was just unbelievable when I heard Wes Montgomery and Charlie Christensen, play, and so I was into it, but it was I did not understand it. So I didn't even understand blues, really. And so when I would watch him, and then he showed me a couple scales, I said, "Well, I know those scales." Yeah, he goes, "But you got to play them different in blues. You got to bend them. You got to, do all the stuff." And he showed me those stuff. So I kind of caught on to what he was doing, and so we traveled with them, and we I got to know Joe Kelly from the Shells of Night, the great guitar player too, blues, uh, and who else? I didn't meet the outsider. I didn't know the outsiders very well. It seemed like they kept to themselves, sometimes people keep to themselves, in bands. But the McCoys, they were really nice guys, and the Shells and Knights. After the tour, we hung out. Every time we would play Chicago, they'd come out and hang out with us. We'd go to the apartment and just, they were just great friends, not just musician friends, but and it was exciting because I remember, when I listened to Paul McCartney talk about it, he was talking to Mick Jagger, and I said, "Well, that's great to have a companion type friendship,
Hmm.
between great artists, and I kind of felt that, with Rick Derringer,
Yep.
and so we did that tour, and then we did a tour when we did American Bandstand. Dick Clark, he took a liking to us, and every time we would see him, we would be traveling, and flying, and we went to LA a couple times, and we were landing, and he was taking off, and he would come up to us and say hi to us, and I thought that was really, really nice to Dick Way. I mean, Dick
Clark.
Clark.
Yep.
Yeah, it's for him to come up to the band and say hi to us, with a big old smile, and I just had so much uh, great, strong feeling for him as a person that he seemed very humble,
Yep.
yeah. And to me, well, I was shy, so I was humble. I never bragged about my playing because I couldn't. I wasn't really a great player. As they were traveling with all these great players, I was.
Yeah, but you
You know,
learn after a while. You learned from that too. And
you do, John, and I did, and I put my time into it. I
yeah.
practice. I knew practice was the big deal thing. People don't talk about it. Musicians don't talk about it,
So how
but it,
long were you in the band in Question Mark the
what's that?
Mysterians? How long were you in the band? How long were you with Question Mark? How many years? You guys started at 66, right?
No, I started the band in '62.
62. Wow.
I was 12 years old. We were like an instrumental band. But it's '69. We did our third album. We went to LA and recorded our third album. It was never released. And it was like it seemed like during the '60s, these bands all had one hit wonders, type,
Yep.
and we were kind of classified that too. So it kind of took us down, and in 1969, we were like back to square one again, I would say. We
Well,
still had a lot of recognition, but it was kind of weird back then. It seemed like music just kept moving on, and uh, that one hit wonder was pretty pre- what's the word,
prevalent.
prevalent, yeah.
Yep.
And we were one of them, and so we did our third album, and it was never released. But when I came home from LA, we did it in LA at Ray Charles Studios, and it was never released. But I came home and I realized I needed to get a job, and start my life, go back to school because I quit at 16 years old. I was in the ninth grade,
Yep.
so I went back to school, and I started playing in the local bands just because I love playing music. But I never gave up the idea of writing music, And we got back together in 1978. Michigan was in terrible shape because the oil shortage, and General Motors and Ford, they're all here. So they were laying everybody off, and it affected the economy so quick. So I headed down to Texas to Houston because it was like boomtown there, and I got a job there. And there was a guy. My mom cut out this article about this guy from Austin, Texas. His name was Joe King Carrasco, and Joe
Yeah.
King.
I remember him. I saw you with him.
Yes, what you said. Yeah, that's awesome. And my mom cut out an article, and his favorite song was '96 Tears. I said, "Well, I got to meet this guy." So I went to Houston, got a job. I was looking for an oil company, exploration company, and and so he played in town, and me and his friend of mine, his girlfriend was she worked for Ticker Master, and so she got us tickets to go see him. So we were watching Joe play, and all of a sudden he starts playing '96 Tears, but he did it really fast. I don't know if you remember that or not. His was like
Yep.
hyper speed.
Yep.
And I thought it was kind of cool because everybody was jumping up and down, and I'm watching the whole crowd. I mean, I'm with the crowd, and the guy I was with, he was a drummer that I was playing with in Houston. I started playing with a band there. And he kept telling me, he kept saying, "Man, they're playing your song." I said, "Yeah." So he looked up at Joe and trying to get his attention. He goes, "This is the guy who wrote it." He's just pointing at me. And so he goes, "I'm going to go up to the side of the stage back and talk to somebody and tell them that you're here. They're playing your song." So he went up and talked to, he thought it was like a roadie or something, but it was actually Joe King's manager. And he was at the side, and he was there. Anyway, so he told Joe King's manager, his name was Joe Potosky, and he told him who I was. So he called me over there, and I talked to Joe. He introduced me to him. And Joe said, "So you're one of the guys that play with Question Mark the Mysterians?" I go, "Yeah, I started the band. I was a kid." He goes, "Joe's gonna want to talk to you." So
Yeah, he is.
yeah. So so after he was done playing, Joe found out that I was there, so he called me backstage, and I went back there. And he was doing a radio interview for Rice University there in Houston. And the guy was holding up the mic and asking, and I was just sitting there watching, and Joe takes the mic away from him, and he starts asking me questions. Joe King, he goes, "So this is Bobby Balderrama from Question Mark," and the guy started laughing. I'm laughing too, and so he started asking me a bunch of questions. So we hit it off really good, and I was really impressed with his entertainment. He could put on a show. I never considered him a great singer. Question Mark wasn't a great singer. When you're talking great singers, you're talking like uh, Motown singers. And all those guys. Gordy Berry always made sure he had great singers. Rock and roll didn't qualify to need a great singer, but Joe King, he was a package. He was a good singer and a great entertainer. I mean, he was just amazing. He just blew me away. And so we became friends and stuff. And then he played a couple times more, and he kept telling me, "You got to put the original band back together," And I said, "Well, Question Mark's got some subs. I call them substitutes, because they're not the original." And so what happened was Houston went into reverse. There was an oil glut. So they started laying off, and I knew I was getting laid off. So I called Joe's manager up, and I said, "Tell Joe I'm gonna be going back home to Michigan because uh, the job I'm gonna get laid off." So
He hired you, I bet.
well, I told him, I said, let me know when he plays in Michigan because I knew he played all over the country, and he was on MTV a lot. So and Joe Petoskey said, "Yeah, I'll let him know." So they had sent me a message back that they were going to be playing in Lansing, and so I went to go see him play. And he had told me, he goes, "Why don't you put the band together? And you guys open up for me." I said, "Well, Question Mark got subs, and he goes, 'We'll just talk to him.' I said, 'All right.' So I called Question Mark up like 2 or 3 days later, and he goes, 'No, I'm not interested.' He goes, I got my own band now." I said, "That's what I thought." Then 2 weeks later, Question Mark calls me up. He goes, "Would you be willing to do like a reunion? Maybe just go down there and do a few gigs and come home, and then I get back to my own band." I said, "Yeah, I would do it." I said, "Let me talk to the rest of the guys." So I got with everybody in the band, the original guys, and they all agreed. So we did it. We went down there, and it was right down New Year's time, and we opened up for Joe King in Dallas and Austin and Houston and San Antonio. And in Dallas, we played a really nice place, and the the lady, she was from MTV there. Her name was Mary. She was really short girl, dark hair, just hair length that down to her shoulder. She really cute girl. And she was a VJ, is what she was. That's what they called them, I guess, and MTV. She was like the host of the show. So they filmed it and everything, and it was recorded, and I guess it was released on the Roar cassettes. But uh, Question Mark Joe King had asked me, he goes, "So I think you guys are going to get a record deal from France called New Rose Records." And he was on that label. And he said, would you be interested?" I go, "Yeah." So, and he goes, "They probably will want to put you in tour all over Europe." I said, "Wow, that would be amazing." I would look forward to that. So, I asked Question Mark, "Would you want to do it?" And he goes, "No, I just wanted to do the reunion. That's it." And so yeah, yeah. So, I was kind of bummed out, John, because I was hoping that he would want to do it, but, and then he comes at me. He goes, I tell you what, let's do it. I'll take my new band and I'll take you guys, and then we'll open up with the original band, and then I'll open up, and then I'll have my new band come on. I said, question mark. The feeling I get is they don't want to hear the new band. You don't have. I felt that they didn't have nothing to offer except try to copy like us, PR music, and so I told him, I said, I don't think he'd be interested. I'll ask him. And so Joe King, I asked him, and he goes, no, they're not interested in no new band or question mark. They want the original band, question mark, and original, and
Yeah.
Mysterians original. And so he said, no, I don't want to do it. So Joe had asked me, he goes, so what are you going to do, Bobby? I said, well, I guess I'm going back home, go back to school. And I had a job working at a music store doing repairs on the amplifier side to learn electronics. And so he goes, would you be interested in playing with my band? And I go, yeah, let me know when. He goes, well, I know you got to get back home and get situated, but I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks. And then if you can move down here or come down here and however you decide. So I did. I moved down there and I started playing with him. And we played all over the world, actually. I played more places with Joe King than I ever did with Question Mark and Mysterians. We played in Europe. We used to play in Europe at least 2 or 3 times a year, and we would play France. I hit all the countries, and it was exciting, because people found out that I was playing with Joe King, and we were playing in Paris one time, and Joe had asked me. He goes, they'd asked me to do a morning show like the Today Show in
Yeah.
Paris,
Yeah.
and they want you to be there. If you be interested, I go, yeah, I'd like to be there. So we were on that morning show, and everybody speaking in French, except when they talked to us. So I didn't know it was even being said, And the host asked me a question, and I answered, and everybody was so excited. He kept asking me questions all the time, and he barely talked to Joe, So on the way home, on the way back to the hotel, I apologized to Joe. I said, Joe, I didn't mean for that to happen. He goes, Bobby, don't even worry about it. He goes, they were excited to see one member of Question Mark Mysterians because you guys never played in Europe. I've been playing here for a long time now. And they would love to see the band play, Question Mark. I said, yeah, but, Question Mark's got his new band, but it was such a great time, John, because everybody had our albums, the
Yeah.
that 96 Tears album. And I was signing them left and right. We played in Spain, we played, it was just a great
So
time.
he was promoting you while you were over there. That's pretty cool.
That He really was, and by him when he told me that he don't worry about the guy, the host of the TV show talking more to me than him. He said, Bobby, that helps me out. You play with my band, right? You're
Yeah.
you're a band member, so that helps me out. I said, oh, cool. I said, cool, man. That's great because I don't like to step on people. I don't like to.
So
I
how
don't
was
like.
it playing the fast version of 96 Tears with him? What was that like for you?
It was crazy because I remember watching them, and then all of a sudden here I'm playing, and I'm sure you saw us when we played
In
in Boston.
Boston, yeah, you were at the Paradise back in
Yeah,
1980, somewhere in there, 79, 80,
yeah, yeah. It was between 85 and 90 because that's when I was playing with him.
85, right.
Yeah, in 90 in 1990, I stuck with him for 5 years, but as time went on, I could see that they were trying to make him a new wave star, or something, and the new wave started going out, and I could see he was getting less attention, from the record company and everybody. And so I felt that before with Question Mark Mysterians, when we were going into our downtime, and I could sense it for Joe King, and the money wasn't quite as elaborate as it was when I first started playing with him. So I knew, that was part of it. So I decided, it was time for me to go back to Michigan and do what I wanted to do is create my own music, because I love playing with Joe King and he did kind of like a Tex-Mex style, where he had an accordion player. The accordion player was amazing, Marcelo Gauna. And we were all great friends and everything. I'm still friends with Joe, and he's still playing. He was playing in the Ukraine. Remember I told you
Yep.
that? Yeah, and he's out in Europe, and he got a hold of me right before the COVID, and he goes, "Hey, Bobby, why don't we put something put the Mysterians and to back me up." And I thought that was a great idea, Joe King Carrasco and the Mysterians, because we weren't playing with Question Mark. He was having some health issues, so he refused to play anymore at that time. And so I said, "Yeah." So he goes, "I'll tell you what, I'll come up to Michigan for a couple of weeks, hang out with you." I said, "Yeah, you can stay at my house." So we had it all planned out. Then all of a sudden, COVID came in, and it just
Everything
took.
stopped. Everything stopped.
And, yep, and me and Joe, we decided, well, we can't do nothing because musicians aren't playing right now. They ban music into the bars, any place with crowds. So we decided we're going to wait till after COVID. But after the COVID, the Mysterians, we had 2 years. That was 2 whole years that we were dealing with COVID. And then the Mysterians didn't play any plays. All I did was practice, but I got better. you know, but when we got back together, the Mysterians, it was hard, John. It was really hard because we were a cover band too. We played a lot of covers, a lot of '60s covers. We were kind of like a '60s band too. We not only played Question Mark Mysterians on, but we played a lot of '60s. And to relearn those songs over again, it was like starting from scratch again with the band. We could play them, but just working them out and everything, and we did them our own way. So it was hard, and so I started doing smooth jazz. I love smooth. When George Benson came out in the '70s, I fell in love with his style, and I always loved Carlos Santana's style. When this came out in the '60s, and I could play. I learned to play like him. I learned people would say, "Well, you not only look like Carlos, you sound like him." I never thought I look like him. But anyway, so I love the style. So back in the '70s, we would play, Evil Ways and Black Magic Woman, and I learned a lot of his songs. So I learned his technique. And me being Mexican, it just kind of came easy.
Hmm.
And so when we play out, we do like a medley of Carlos, and I love his guitar playing. I love his band; they're amazing. The whole band. And so you know that's what we did. And me and Joe, I could say he hooked up with some other guys that he knew, and so I felt I really didn't want to go back to Texas, and that's his hometown.
Hmm.
And I knew eventually that I would have to be hanging out there, with him. And it wasn't really my venture to go to Texas. I just didn't feel comfortable there. Michigan, I grew up in. So uh, we started playing with Question Mark again, and we started doing a few gigs here and there. And we did a few shows and stuff. But it was before, it was 1995. We actually got back together again as original band, and we toured. What started it was we were rehearsing, working on doing something, and I got a call from an agent in California, and he wanted to book the Question Mark Mysterians along the coast, and he said he could book us from San Diego all the way up to Seattle or Vancouver. We wanted to go to Vancouver. So I talked to the guys, and we were all for it. So he set us up our contract to do the tour, and we went out there, and we realized that we got really good. We were really tight. We could stop on a dime, our music and everything. We put a lot of time into our practice and everything, and when we went out there, we were blowing people away. That they couldn't believe how good we were. And Question Mark was amazing, entertainer still, in the '90s. So we did great, and then in 2000, uh, Question Mark, that's when he started having health problems, and his high blood pressure went up. And we were playing in Columbus, Ohio, and he was singing 96 Tears for the final song, and he started singing like Frank Sinatra, like a crooner, like you're gonna cry 96 years, and I'm going, wow, that don't even sound like his voice. So when we were done playing for the night, I asked him, I said, why was you singing like Frank Sinatra? He goes, well, I wasn't singing like Frank Sinatra. I was just singing low. I said, why was you singing low for? He goes, I felt like I was going to pass out, and I said, oh, I said, how do you feel now? He goes, well, I feel all right, but it still feel kind of weird. So I said, well, get checked out when you get home. We were in Columbus, Ohio. And so we were driving out of the parking lot, and before you know it, somebody yelled, question mark, fainted. So I stopped the car and I looked, and he
Wow.
was walking out of the building, and he fainted. So I think the air hit him. He was about ready to faint or something. And when the air hit him when he walked outside, he uh, fainted. And so I stopped and I talked to his manager. I said, "You called 911?" And he go, "Yeah, they're on their way." And then he said uh, that I told him, I said, "I'll call you tomorrow and see how Question Mark doing." And I think he was starting to come out of it. And so I called his house, and Question Mark answered the phone. And I said, "Hey, you all right?" Question Mark. I said, "You answered the phone." And he goes, "Yeah, I just had, I don't know what it was. I just fainted, but I'm all right now." What it was high blood pressure, and he had it really bad. So we didn't play for almost 8 years. All these people contacted me, all over the world. They wanted us to play, and he wouldn't do it. So we kind of dropped out of the music circuit. And the Mysterians just kept, we are just playing now. But I kept doing my smooth jazz, John. And me and Frankie wrote a song. I wrote a song called Happy and Go Lucky. And it was a smooth jazz song. And I really loved the song because it made you feel happy and go lucky. You ever get a chance, check out that song. You can hear it on YouTube. And you'll feel it. I mean, I was feeling. I was writing. I was teaching it to. I was trying to teach my stepson. Anyone to learn rap music, because I was writing drum tracks for him. Then I came up with this bass line, dun 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 dun, and it just made me feel happy. And so I could name the song "Happy and Go Lucky." And so I went to. I was playing for this friend of mine, and he hired the Mysterians, and he goes, "Hey, Bobby, have you ever got a song you want to promote? I'd be interested." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been talking to some people in New York, and they're connected with Sony Records, and if you have a song, I would be glad to propose it to them and see what they think." So I sent it to him, Happy and Go Lucky, and they fell in love with the song. They thought it sounded like George Benson. Well, I don't think it sounded like George Benson, but George Benson was he is my favorite jazz guitarist, at
Yeah.
this point in time. So I did try to emulate him. I didn't think I did, but that guy from Sony Records thought so. So that made me happy. And he liked the song, so he promoted it on Smooth Jazz and went number 27 on Billboard,
Wow.
which I was happy, you know. And then it was about 2 years later, they got a hold of me, and they were called La Sonic. They have a project team going, and they have their own recording company, but I think they're distributed through Sony Records. Anyway, they asked me if I would be interested in helping them write a song because they knew I loved to write music. So the producer, his name is Gary Lekowitz, and and he's really talented producer, awesome. And so he said, "I'm going to send you four notes if you can write a song to it." I said, "I could do it, Gary." So he sent me four notes, and I wrote a song called "Any Moment." It went number one on Billboard, and now I can actually say, John, I'm not a one hit wonder no more. You know what I'm
No.
saying? And the song went number one. And me and Frankie were part of the writing team. There was four of us. It was Frankie Rodriguez, me. It was Mike Rogers and Gary Lekowitz. We put that song together. You ever get a chance, listen to that song. It's amazing. It's an amazing song.
Well, you got a new song called Sunset Beach that's come out.
Yep. And Sunset Beach is on Billboard right now. And it's getting more airplay. It's getting on. airplay all over the country right now. I go on different smooth jazz stations. Not anyway, if I listen long enough, I'll hear it. And I'm really proud of it. I'm happy.
Well,
It's
well,
doing really good.
well, look at you from way when you first started out. You didn't even know how to play that type of stuff, and now look what you're doing now. You're doing
I
it,
know.
huh?
You're right, John. I think the love I have, compassion I have, not the compassion, but the passion I have for love, I mean, for playing music. I've always loved playing music. I still play 60s music. I love playing 60s music. Music to me, all genres, but jazz was always the first love. Actually, it just was beyond me, like you said.
And
But
you played blues too through the
I
years.
did. I put out a blues album, but I realized that the blues, that's a hard, hard road. And a lot of musicians, when they get old, musicians from the past that made it, they turn to blues because it's fun to play. You know, it's fun to jam on the guitar. I love it. And I was loving. I was writing songs, and I did a song by. Uh, it was Blues. I did. You heard that song, right?
Blues,
Blues.
blues. Yep.
Who wrote that? That was a guy from England. Uh, I can't think of his name. I did my version of it. Everybody kept saying, "Well, yours sounds better." Well, it only sounds better because of the technology. He did the song in the '60s, and I did it in the '90s and or early 2000s. So technology was better. I put harmonies, and it sounds. My guitar playing the overdrive. They didn't have that back in the '60s. You had to turn up real loud to get the sound. So, or they had a buzz, but not all these, extravagant buzzes. But anyway, uh, yeah, any moment went number one, and now I'm feeling really good about Sunset Beach, and I'm doing a video right now, putting a video of all the beaches all over the world. I'm doing AI video.
Yep.
I can't travel all over the world, so AI is coming handy for that. But I feel really good about the song, and I know it's in Billboard right now and Media Base and a lot of radio stations, and I feel hopeful, and I pray to the Lord that it hits number one too. And I want to thank you for this interview, and I really appreciate
Well,
us talking.
I appreciate you taking some time, and I was amazed when I found out that you played with Joe King Carrasco, and you were one of the Crowns, the band,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I actually got to see you. I didn't realize that you were in the
that's
band.
awesome, John. That's cool. I still talk to people. I met out east. Through Facebook. We a lot of people I became friends with. That I met traveling, and what's really cool is when I played there with Joe. When I we Question Mark Mysterians played in Boston too. We played with the Liars.
Yeah, I
You
know
know,
the Liars. They're a
yeah.
Boston band. Yep.
Yeah. And what's his name? What's the singer's name?
Oh,
Uh,
I forget. But yeah,
yeah,
they were a great Boston band, the Liars.
yeah. They're still playing, aren't they? Or
I think so.
I think yeah, because I saw a promotion that they were playing someplace on Facebook, and yeah, and every time when my song any moment when it was going number one, the singer would congratulate me, and it was really nice. So it's always nice, I always try to stay in contact with everybody I met, but I feel really good about Sunset Beach to do really good, and that's my venture. What I want to do is we still play as the Mysterians,
You're
and we
kidding
played
me.
a couple.
Really? You still do?
Yeah, and we played September 5th in Detroit at the place called Rooster Tail, and we did really good. Question Mark's 81 right now. And his uh, performance ain't what it used to be, but I appreciate us going out there and performing anyway. Like me, I never quit practicing. I practice every day. I try to write music. But the Mysterians, what we're going to be doing, we're putting kind of like a oldie show together where we're going to dress up like hippies, and have a kind of like an oldies look,
Hmm.
instead of just dress up normal and just playing the oldies. We're playing for Halloween, so it's going to be our start, the Halloween, and the Mysterians. It's not a question mark. It's just the Mysterians, and we're gonna next summer. I want, even though my song makes number one, I love playing the oldies. I love playing as Mysterians. Because I started the band. And I still play the Ventures. I do solo. I play the Ventures instrumentals, all of them. Walk Don't Run. I do. I even do Hawaii 5-0. And I seen people dancing to it one time. But anyway, I, that's my love. It never went away playing instrumentals. So I will
Good.
always keep playing with Question Mark as long as with the Mysterians. I mean, Question Mark. I don't know how long. When we played in Detroit, he did really good, but I could see that once you hit 80, and traveling and performing and all that, it takes its toll.
Todd.
It does, and I can see when we just played in Detroit, he looks very frail, So I don't know how long we'll be playing with him, but the Mysterians will go on as long as we can too,
That's good.
And I thank you, John, because I had a great time playing out east in Boston, and Washington D.C., and New York. I was going to mention to you. There's a club in New York City in the Village called Club 96 Tears. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know it either. There was one in L.A., and I talked to a lady there, called her up, and she thought I was going to sue her, right? And I said, no. I said, thank you for keeping our name alive and the song alive.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, somebody told me, there's a club in New York now called Club 96 Tears. I thought maybe it was the same people, but it wasn't. And it's actually a real club. And so, I talked to the people there, and we did a documentary just recently with Question Mark Mysterians, where everybody involved. And so they're going to release it in 2026. So I talked to the people at the Club 96 here in New York. So we might do like a record release for the documentary there at the club.
Good.
Yep. And I want to get a hold of them too. I'm waiting because I'm going to go to New York. Take uh, I'm gonna take my jazz there, and I have never met those people in New York that I work with, so I want to meet them that work with Sony, and then I want to perform there at the club. So if I do, I'll let you know. How far is Boston from New York?
About 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, really? I thought it was closer. But yeah, if I play there, I'll let you know.
All right.
And but thank you so much, John, for
You're
our
welcome.
conversation and the interview and your interest.
Tell the listening audience how they can find you. You're on Facebook, right?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I have Robert Lee Balderrama, and it's on Facebook. And I've already hit my max. I think I'm at 5,000. But you can follow me, And then I got a Robert Lee fan page, and then you can follow me there. Um, and then you can follow me on YouTube too. With I got all the music. Uh, it was called Robert Lee Revue. Revue was
Yeah.
the band, my smooth jazz band, and we released 3 albums, and the third album it's like the best of all. But you can hear me on YouTube. I have a cartoon video of one song called Jazz Dude. So I'm on YouTube a lot, and I'll be uh, putting my video for Sunset Beach real soon too.
Great. Well, Robert, thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy day, and I really appreciate it.
And thank you, John. I really appreciate it too. And hopefully, I'll see you in Boston or something.
Yeah.
Playing my cool jazz. If I do, if I go out there, I'll let you know. I'll
Let
get a
me
hold of you.
know. Let me know.
Okay.
I'll come see you.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
All right.
And great conversation. God bless.
Same here. Same to you.